Okay, we're going to call tonight's town meeting to order. I'm Bob Carlson, the first selectman. We also have Selectman John Gassion, Selectwoman Nicole Porter, and Assistant Town Clerk. Filling in for Antoinette is Cheryl Savage, and our assessor, Jen Lineweaver. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Before I look for nominations for a moderator this evening, just want to say thank you for coming out on this cold evening. This is our second town meeting within 3 weeks, which is something that the Board of Selectmen does not like to do. If you have too many town meetings, they seem to lose their importance. But there was a, yeah, but he's right there. No, he's good right there because I need to have people on that podium on camera. The camera's only so wide, and so, but thank you for bringing that up. I can have him run back and forth if you want. So, anyway, so again, we don't like to have too many town meetings, but this Jen Lineweaver, assessor, came to me a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately, it was just after we called the last town meeting, and said there's something of importance that will affect some of our veterans. And if we don't have it done before January 1st, we're not going to get a chance to do it. So we try to stretch it out as far from that town meeting as possible without getting into the true 12 days of Christmas, which I guess we're into now. But anyway, I just I apologize for bringing you out, but thank you. It's actually more people than I expected this evening. Thank you for coming. I think it is of great importance that we're having this meeting, whichever way the vote goes, but I think it's important to address it. And now I'm going to open up the floor to nominations for our moderator. Do I have any nominations? All right, so Judy Main is nominating Bill Ricker. Do I hear a second nominee? A second. Ann Norwalk is seconding. Okay, do I hear any other nominations? Any other nominations for moderator? Okay, hearing none, I entertain a motion to close nominations. With Judy Main, and do I hear a second? And Norwalk. Okay, nominations are then closed. So we have one nominee, it's Bill Ricker. All those in favor of electing Bill Ricker as our moderator this evening, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Bill, please take over the meeting. Thank you. And thank you for coming tonight.
Just a push. Okay, there are two calls for discussion and vote this evening. I'll ask the principals to give a summary of the call. Following the presentation, questions may be addressed to the speaker. It's a small group, but let me establish some rules for this meeting. Come to the microphone, give your name and address if you wish to address the speaker. You'll have 2 minutes in order to ask your question or make a comment. I'll alternate recognition between people on the floor and anyone on Zoom. Only folks that are present will be able to vote. Those on Zoom are not able to vote. Questions must be relevant to the topic at hand only. You need not be a resident of the town, but you do need to own $1,000 or more of taxable property to be recognized. Falsifying your information is punishable by both a fine and imprisonment, as well as a loss of your right to vote. This is a short meeting, so I don't anticipate lengthy questions, but voting may be by hand, and if it's inconclusive, I'll ask for a paper ballot. Are there any questions or objections to these rules? Hearing none, we'll proceed. Will the town clerk please read the first call?
Warning is hereby given to the electors and those entitled to vote at town meetings of the town of North Stonington that a special meeting shall be held at the following location on the date and time indicated for the purpose of transacting the business set forth below. Location, North Stonington Education Center, Media Center, 298 Norwich Westerly Road, and via Zoom, which was advertised in McCall. Meeting ID 826-1904-8011, passcode 213906. Date December 15th, 2025. Time 6:30 p.m. Only those attending the meeting in person will be able to vote. The meeting will be available for comment and viewing through Zoom at the link above, but those attending virtually will not be able to vote. All supporting documentation will be available on the town website, www.northstoningtonct.gov. Question 1, shall the town adopt the ordinance section 19-25 property tax exemption for veterans based on unemployability, expanding the eligibility of veteran property tax exemption per the guidelines of Connecticut Public Act 24-46 as permitted under House Bill 7287.
Is there a motion to accept this call? Your name, please? Yeah, and seconded? Okay, and Noah Walker seconded. Are there any questions opposing or supporting for the speaker? Can you explain the call a bit further,
Yeah,
please?
Jen Lineweaver, the assessor, will be doing that. Thank you, Jen. You're on. Now you're off.
Okay,
Now
got
you're
it.
on.
Thank you. This ordinance is intended for any veteran who has a service-connected permanent and total disability based on individual unemployability. Any veteran meeting that criteria would be eligible to apply for a property tax exemption for their dwelling owned and occupied as their primary residence as provided for in Connecticut Public Act 24-46 as permitted under House Bill 7287. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Nice to see you again. Gary Nino, 91 Main Street. I served, I'm honorably discharged. I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but define unemployability, because there are a lot of individuals in this world these days that get a disability and yet pick up gainful employment elsewhere.
Yep.
It's-
So this is something, it's a term that's codified by the Department of Veteran Affairs. It's called TDIU. So it's something where those veterans that fall under this parameter have to, on some type of routine basis, certify to the VA that they are unable to obtain gainful employment. From my experience, what I've learned since the original bill was passed is that most of the veterans that fall under this category do not have a 100% permanent and total rating. Oftentimes they're at less than 100%. So the original legislation was intended and specified for 100% permanent and totally disabled veterans, while it was intended to help the neediest of that demographic.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't be able to answer exactly how the VA establishes that criteria, but my understanding is if they have to provide documentation to the VA on some type of continual basis that they are not able to obtain gainful employment due to the disability they incurred through their military service.
So we as the town, I mean, you and your role have no involvement in discerning who's disabled and who's not. This is, where I'm going is you can delegate your authority, but not your responsibility. And it feels like we are delegating our authority to the VA, but yet we're responsible to levy the taxes to make the town go. So how do we, where are the checks and balances?
So the first time that this iteration, I should say, was passed in the 2024 legislative session. And my understanding is that there was a request made to the Department of VA for how many veterans lived in the state of Connecticut that were not able to obtain gainful employment, that were, the financially neediest of that demographic. And the way that the law was initially written was just that any veteran with a permanent and total disability would receive the entirety of their dwelling exempt. As the language got passed around, it was revealed that there was a lot of administrative and technical issues with the bill. However, when the state passed it not as a local option, which means that assessors and municipalities don't have a say. They don't reimburse for it, but they made it, a mandated exemption.
Mhm.
They further clarified it in March of 2025 by passing an emergency certification that stated that the law was only intended for 100% permanent and total. What the legislators found is that a lot of people with 100% permanent and total do not necessarily have any inability to work. So when the VA, and I don't work for the VA,
Yeah.
but from what I understand, if I were to go and I have served and I lose my pinky is never going to grow back. So that is something that is permanent and total. So permanent and total disability per the VA does not necessarily mean that you cannot work. So the legislation, while it was intended to be for the people, the demographic that we're talking about this evening, that's not who they wrote it for. And they were unwilling to backtrack it.
Yep.
So after the 2025 session, they included a bunch of different local options because the legislators could not really decide what was fair, and they left that up to the individual municipalities. These people are people that have received the exemption last year, and if the town were to choose to not adopt it, they will have that exemption taken away from them.
Mhm.
At least from what I understand from the Department of Veteran Affairs, these are the people that would struggle the most in terms of being able to afford staying in their homes.
Okay.
Question answered.
I continue. Is there, this is getting into a broader discussion, but I'm watching what's coming down from Hartford, and it's making me concerned because it seems to be imparted on us as opposed to us being a part of it.
Mhm.
This particular one I'm supportive of, but I watch some of the affordable housing regulations coming through, and it's just starting to curl my toes a little bit. Is there a way that this could, at some point down the road, get relaxed where the impact to the town is much higher than currently anticipated?
If I had a crystal ball, I would love to be able to see into the future and
No,
guess that
but can
feedback.
Hartford change this and then it becomes de facto, or would we have to vote on this again?
I would assume that the legislature could pass anything they wanted to if they were able to get it passed. I mean, what I can say, I suppose would be the best way to answer it is that in my experience, in my tenure as being an assessor for the past 20 years, there have been exemptions that have changed. It's not often. Normally exemptions get expanded. They don't get restricted.
Right.
But I don't think it's a secret that municipalities are struggling, and there has been a large push in terms of unfunded mandates.
Yep. No,
And-
where I was going was if it gets relaxed, do we vote on it again?
It would entirely be dependent on how they wrote it. So for instance, I'll give you an example. There are local options for various things. North Stonington has the local option for farm buildings. There are times where they will increase the threshold for certain exemptions in local options, and that's up to the municipality to choose to increase that threshold.
Right.
So it doesn't become an automatic increase. Each municipality has to decide. So it's normally written, let's say the farm buildings were up to 100,000 and they wanted to change it to something else. Whatever that something else was, that municipality would have to then go and
Act.
decide whether or not they wanted to increase that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Questions or comments on Zoom? No. Given that, I will call for a vote. All in favor of this call, raise your hand. It's unanimous. May I have a reading of the second call?
Shall the town clerk be allowed to publish an abbreviated version of the legal ad regarding the notice of passage of the ordinance?
Questions or comments from the floor? Questions or comments on Zoom? Questions or comments from the selectmen? I'll call for a vote. Pardon me? Call for a vote. All in favor of the call, please raise your hand. I'm deeming it unanimous. There is no need to call for opposition or abstentions. So hearing no other comments from the floor, from Zoom, the votes have been tallied. I call this town meeting adjourned.